Harrison with you, and we are standing at the world premiere, actually the Los Angeles premiere of the world premiere of Zeitgeist Moving Forward, being released in 325 theaters simultaneously, multiple countries, multiple languages, and standing next to us is a man who is now considered an American hero. Why? Because he's leapt off the high dive on behalf of other people who he's never even met. In short, it's about changing the world, and not just doing it at home while gnawing on a pizza, but it's actually about being into action, into the solution, and laying out the solution in an easy to understand way. And I'm talking about Peter Joseph. You've not only directed Zeitgeist Moving Forward, but you're responsible for the previous two that have done so much to awaken the American mindset.
Well, I'd hope so. I would hope so. It depends on who you ask. Some people will agree with that statement, and some people will vehemently deny such a statement. So we have a certain controversy with the films, but overall, I think anyone who watches all of the series will need to walk away with a very positive worldview and a very clear understanding that we're on a downward spiral in many levels in society. So, we complain a lot in society. That's a point I'd like to bring up is people love to complain. Everyone complains. And I've done my fair share of complaining too in the films, but this new film is about solutions. It's about showing a direction of something that's very possible, very feasible, that can happen if the public wanted it to. We have to overcome some tremendous barriers to do so. There's a establishment orthodoxy that exists in any society, through any culture, throughout history. Any kind of great social change that's ever happened has been met with a great deal of resistance. So my goal here with the film is to kind of generate a feeling, not only an intellectual understanding, but a feeling and an interest, an emotional drive to want to see the world change for the better. And that's the point of art in and of itself, wouldn't you say?
Well, absolutely, at least in its better moment. Now, of course, people would love to say that art creates maniacs out there, and maniacs can also create art. So who's to say? But the beautiful thing is, so many of us lust for a solution. So many of us feel disenfranchised from our environment. People are getting kicked out of their houses. People don't understand why inflation is happening, yet the great Bernanke says something differently, and they don't even understand how stuff is actually interconnected. And I have to tell you, if American history books had even 4 pages of what you have in Zeitgeist, there'd be, well, a small revolution.
Well, I think so. Well, to give a clear example, a lot of people still believe that Columbus founded America. This statement resonates throughout all of culture. It's almost cliche for me to bring it up because anyone that's of a general understanding knows that that's nonsense, that there were hundreds of millions of people throughout the entire Americas that were more or less systematically slaughtered, but you don't see that in any of the textbooks in American history. So we have statues of this mass murderer. So, you have to realize that history is written by the winners, and basically the propaganda machine, which I hate to use that word because it's so loaded, but propaganda is how you more or less control a people, whether it's in China or whether it's in America. If you were to compare 2 different forms of totalitarianism, you could have a kind of an overt totalitarianism and say this sort of China Republic of China, where they control the media and they control things very liberally, very obviously, where they shut down the internet. In America, it's different. The control is done through value systems and taboos and things that people are not supposed to talk about. You're not supposed to talk about certain things. You're not supposed to talk about anything that goes against, say, the monetary system. Oh, the free market, it's about freedom, You're not supposed to, and people get very uncomfortable naturally when you do as well. And you get called a kook, and you'll be called all sorts of lovely names if you attempt to challenge anything that the status quo maintains in that particular point in time. And that goes all the way back to Socrates. Socrates never challenged the slavery in his time. He's considered a great philosopher, but it was presupposed. Everyone presupposes their reality. They think that's normality. It is normality. They think that normality is empirical. And it never is, ever.
And if we legislate things like slavery, as we saw in the state of Maryland in 1640, where if you owned land, you had to have slaves. It was illegal not to. Therefore, it must be okay because the grown-ups in Washington declare it so. And equally, we see these kind of interesting paradigms. And just to wrap it up, you have jumped off the high dive in a really huge way tonight. I mean, your dream of telling the truth is now manifest into a huge international vehicle. Excitement might be understating it slightly.
And it's a little nerve-wracking simultaneously. The goal here is to get these ideas out and permeating where they detach and they have their own life. It shouldn't always come back to, say, a director, or it shouldn't come back to even a movie series. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about the actual data and the ideas and the understanding and the logic. and how to move forward with that information to make a better world. And that's what I'm going for with the work in the film. And as you might know, I'm the founder of a social movement that is very different from the films. The films are my expression. The movement is explicitly about going into a very different social design based on science and humanity, based on updating society to present-day knowledge. I mean, we live in the dark ages with regard to what we're doing systematically through the monetary system, through our health practices, through almost every facet of modern culture you see today is, I'd say, at least decades behind where it should be with respect to what science has shown us. Now, I'm not some kind of magical science individual. You say those words and people read into them. They say, "Oh, science." What is it, L. Ron Hubbard? They don't really understand what you're talking about. They don't even know what science.
L. Ron was God in Scientology, curiously enough.
Yes, indeed. So you always deal with the semantic problems with any of these arguments. And when people view this film and when people review this film, which I'm fascinated to see, I've already seen a few of them, the projections go crazy. People just see whatever they want to see. And it's an unfortunate reality in our culture. People don't. The critical, independent thought is a scarce thing out there. And
let me offer an unsolicited compliment, because if you remember in 8th grade, let's pretend it was 8th grade, where we were all taught word problems. If Sally drops out of an airplane at 300 miles an hour and the cat runs across the ground and the manhole cover shoots up, when did Timmy eat the apple, right? And all of this was to teach us how to think, how to give us analytical prowess. And I would tell you that your work here as a director, as a storyteller, once again puts us in that place where we actually have to think about stuff. And if anything, you're making the dendrites and the synapses fire for the first time in many a noggin.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, even information that could be suspect, even information that someone might not believe in the end, but getting them in that process of thought, simply activating critical thought processes that someone would never even consider because of their social influences. We're all victims of culture. There's certain. If you're born into a racist family, you might be a racist, and you might have a blocked element in your mind, sort of a
reptilian limbic.
Well, there's a special term for it I can't quite think of right now, but it has to do with blinkering out.
Bigot?
Well, I'm talking about a way of thought, a process of blinkering out information to support your worldview. And we do this subconsciously, just like you have muscle memory. A pianist doesn't think about all the notes he's playing. It becomes part of this sort of cycle of neurological structure. The same thing happens with people's thought processes and beliefs. So if you're deeply religious, for example, you're not going to rationalize things sometimes. Some will. This isn't universal, but many often they don't. They locked. It's mind lock. And it doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter any logic you apply to any particular scenario, they blinker it out just to maintain their identity. And anything that challenges their identity triggers a lot of pain. We see this a lot in the culture today when anyone's challenging anything, but I won't go on that tangent.
Well, we want to congratulate you and let you know that this is going to be a very exciting night. Here, the Los Angeles premiere of Zeitgeist moving forward to collide with a 325 movie theater release around the world, international countries, international languages. This is a major leap forward, and I can't wait to talk to you Wednesday, by the way, live. You'll be in our KPFK studios for a full hour where we can unravel the mysteries of humankind, the ontological perspective, why we tick the way we do, and what's the answer, my favorite part.
Of course, well, that's what matters.
Well, we thank you, Peter Joseph.
Thank you very much.
We thank you.